bored, disengaged, and zoomed out. This is the state of a lot of young people online today. Well, welcome back to Canada Today on Muslim Network TV with Taha Ghayur with another episode where we're going to be exploring this phenomena of young people becoming disengaged online. Today, we're going to be talking to some wonderful two individuals who are involved with engaging young people constructively and productively and effectively through their respective organizations, platforms, and programming. And as we know, the pandemic has dramatically changed the way we engage with among ourselves and with ourselves, as well as with our young friends and young folks in our lives and our communities. And this is a challenge that most not-for-profits, Muslim organizations, and religious organizations, as well as, of course, masajid and imam and our leaders and youth workers are facing. So we're going to be talking specifically about challenges as well as opportunities that this pandemic has offered us, and the silver linings and some of the lessons that we can learn from this. So today we're going to be talking to two individuals who are an expert in these fields. Number one, we're going to be inviting Sister Samia Kazi-Tan, who is a co-founder of Being Me's Girl Talk program and a professional accountant with her own accounting practice in the Greater Toronto area. She's a proud mother, and she has worked to overcome family challenges as well as personal life challenges. And she eventually became a proud a person who was inspired by human behavior and helping others, which has led her to working with young people and specifically with various women's groups and organizations. And specifically, she is working right now helping young people at Being Me through various young sisters programs, mashallah. So thank you, Sister Samia, and welcome to our program today on Canada Today.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And thank you for inviting me, Brother Taha. It's an honor to be here. It's actually very energizing to be in this type of conversation where, we are seeing so many challenges. And inshallah, if you let me, I can tell you a little bit about some of the programs that Being Me is offering.
And we'll get into that in just a moment, inshallah. Great, excellent. Well, thank you. And Sister Sarah Attia is the other special guest here with us today. She is a mother of four, an educator, and a community activist with over 15 years of experience in education. She has passion that lies in curriculum development, specifically character development and community contribution. Sarah joins us as a lead of iRise, a youth project of Muslim Association of Canada. She oversees programs and character education curricula at MAC's Islamic schools, and she also currently serves as the director of youth for Muslim Association of Canada. So thank you so much, Sarah, Sister Sarah, for being here on Canada Today.
Assalamu alaikum. It's great to be here. Jazakumullah khairan.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Well, let's start off with actually talking about your wonderful organizations and the work that you're doing. We'll start off with Sister Samia. Tell us about what is it that Being Me and you are doing right now with this particular program, the Girl Talk program, as well as other youth initiatives that Being Me has taken over the past few months, especially.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so Girl Talk program, which I can specifically talk about, is for the ages of 10 to 16. So it's the audience that is youth that's going into grade 5 to high school, basically. And there we just want to create a safe space for the girls to come together and discuss opportunities or any kind of issues that they may have. And specifically provide them with some guidance in self-development. So we have subject matter experts that will come and provide those type of advice in various things. Basically, in a nutshell, we just want to create a place where they can come together and create friendship and learn about their deen in a positive way. That they may sometimes not get it from, let's say, just going to the masjid for Friday prayers. They need an extension of that. Um, the mission of Girl Talk program is to empower the Muslim girls with sound knowledge, deen, character development, and core competencies, tools and resources to become leaders of self and others within the community. So we have a very much a focus on building leaders in this particular program.
Mm.
And the most important thing that I want to highlight here is that this is a program that's designed from, you know, having focus groups, having brainstorming sessions with the girls in that age group to find out what it is that they're having challenges with, whether it's school, whether it's, identity issues. And they tell us what they want to talk about. They tell us what kind of speakers they want to hear from. So it's a very bottom up approach.
Mm. Excellent.
That's with the Girl Talk program. I can also tell you a little bit about the Play and Pray program, which is for the younger people. And there we do crafts and just a bunch of fun things.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And how about MAC Youth, Sister Sarah?
So MAC, the Muslim Association of Canada, alhamdulillah, has been a grassroots organization for many, many years, as you know, Brother Taha. And alhamdulillah, we have 13 chapters across the country, really spanning, many of the major cities where Muslims live, all the way from here in the GTA to Montreal to the west, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. So alhamdulillah, we're able to work with and serve, the communities there, and specifically in my role with MAC Youth, youth. So when we talk about youth, we're talking about high school and university students, sometimes extending to young professionals as well. And like Sister Samia was saying, we also see the need for the younger youth and the importance of engaging them as well. So we do have MAC Youth Junior as well that works with the elementary age kids and youth. So alhamdulillah, like across our different chapters, and we have 18 centers, mosques and centers, and 9 full-time schools, we're able to work with youth and Muslim families across the country and really see what their needs are. With the Muslim Association of Canada, with MAC and specifically MAC Youth, our number one goal is to help youth develop a strong Muslim identity, have a comprehensive understanding of Islam, have a clear Islamic frame of reference, and really give back to the community. So not only, grow as Muslim young people, but also engage in the larger community. So we pride ourselves that we are not just an organization that's service oriented, but also a movement. By that, we mean that we build up our youth, we give them that support and that programming that helps them, move the people around them, that helps them create real change in the world around them. So that's what we aim to do. And so we do that on a national level through some of our national programming, as well as in our chapters. So a lot of the work, most of the work actually happens on the ground through the different youth groups that are across the country.
Awesome. That's great. And great to hear that both of you have a significant reach across the country through various platforms that you offer. And, and some of you, of course, have actual grassroots presence in various cities. So this is why we are talking to you, because, and before we actually get into specifics about, challenges of Muslim youth and Islamic education or engagement through these Muslim institutions, I just wanted to hear from your own personal perspective. I mean, given the kids in your lives, maybe, or the people that you know around you, do you think our public institutions, education institutions in general, have done a good job of effectively engaging young people through through the online platforms that are out there? And because we hear all sorts of perspectives on this, I just thought of asking you, and maybe Sister Sarah, you can go first, and Sister Samia, you can go next.
So, we've seen over the last, almost a year now, people trying to fill the online space with programming for youth, both within the Muslim community and beyond. And there has been, quite a few attempts, from ourselves and from, being me, we've done some work with them as well as many other organizations. And the online space is new and creative, and it allows people to extend beyond their own locality, which is an interesting new, way to engage other people. But there's always definitely more work to be done, both within the Muslim community, allowing for those youth voices to be heard, allowing for them actually dealing with their actual issues and focusing in on actually what they need, as well as in the larger community. I think, finding spaces where Muslim youth can actively engage as young Muslim Canadians and really find their place. I think there's a lot of work that can be done in that area, and that's something we're also, working actively on by partnerships, by giving youth those voices to be part of other platforms. So, to answer your question, yes, and like there is a lot of good creative things that have been popping up, but there's still a lot more work that can be done for sure.
Okay. Well, how about you, Sister Samia?
Yeah, you know what? I can definitely echo what Sister Sarah said about opportunities that are there. I mean, I can speak to our program specifically. When we started going virtual in March, mashallah, mashallah, we started growing an audience that was beyond borders, and that was so refreshing because once you kind of see that your programs doesn't have to be limited to GTA, where you can have mentors that are in Calgary, you can have mentees that are in California. With our program, we even have sisters that are joining from Nigeria. So that's where you feel like you're making such a greater impact. Had COVID never been in our life, we probably never would have imagined to put these type of programs in a virtual level. So, in saying that, I mean, of course, there are challenges, and I think all organizations are probably facing some of those challenges of how to engage the youth in an appropriate way that they actually keep coming. So, I'm not sure if the organizations are not doing enough. I don't think that's the case. I think it's more or less, are the youth interested, and are we really tapping into what really will make them come into the programs, because it's one thing to have the program and it takes hours, as we know, to put something together, but when you have low attendance, you're not getting that reach.
That's great. I think that's a good segue into some really critical conversations we need to have about, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What we've learned, some of the challenges. And I'm glad you started us off on that already. So let's start with, I want to hear, let's start with Samia, specifically about your Being Me youth programming. When the pandemic hit back in March in 2020, what happened at that time? I mean, I'm sure there are some interesting discoveries you made, and you already alluded to a couple of them. But what was the thought process that went behind your team's, evolution and ensuring that we develop a program? I mean, were you seeing a demand for more online programming? And if yes, what was that process that you guys went through to actually launch this particular program or any other youth initiatives at Being Me?
Sure. I'll probably answer that in two parts. One being that at the time when pandemic hit, we were running our mentorship program. So that was, we were meeting up once a month with the mentors and the mentees, and we were having sessions, and then they were also doing phone check-ins and things like that. And then it hit, our last session would have been in February in person. And came March, where we were still in the middle of our program, we had to quickly, just kind of figure out how we can now bring this virtual. And, of course, Zoom being, that's when it blew up with all organizations, we were able to quickly tap into that, and figure out a way. Now, in the same time, we were rolling out the Girl Talk session. So we have 4 programs, and I can get into that a little bit later, but it was first with the Mentors in Training program, that we call it the Leaders in Training. Then we were supposed to roll out in March the monthly program where the girls drop in and they, chit chat over coffee at a coffee shop. That was the vision of the program. And subhanAllah, we are yet to sit in front of each other with a cup of coffee or a dessert. And this is a dream that I keep selling to my girls, when we're together in virtual program, is that, nonetheless, we can still sit with our coffee and not be in person, but still, engage each other in meaningful conversation. Some of the challenges, of course, is virtual is never the same as in person. The youth will not likely open up as freely if they know that they're in a camera and it could be recorded and et cetera, et cetera. So those are some of the challenges that we face. Some of the things that we did, subhanAllah, I can tell you our team worked day and night, try to come up with ways to engage the girls. We had teenagers that were in the program doing, sending out, let's say, videos on Instagram, TikTok, making all kinds of ways to reach out to different communities, just to kind of let them know that, hey girls, we're still here, we're with you, we're engaging you in ways that we don't have a formalized program yet, but here's a platform that you can come and share your thoughts and challenges.
That's great. That's great. So how about MAC Youth, Sister Sarah? I mean, with all this disruption, I mean, how did you guys to sort of recalibrate and, come back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, what do we do now with all the, let's say, 10 teams across the country and sort of join hands together perhaps, or strategize in a different way? So tell us what went through your minds and your team in itself in terms of thinking process.
Yeah, so subhanAllah, I remember back in March when, this hit and we had to kind of think about what do we do next? So how do we, engage youth, and how do we reframe our work based on the context or the current situation that we were in? So I remember calling for a meeting with the 13 MAC youth leads across the country, and within 24 hours we called a meeting, and everyone was there, with their, sleeves rolled up and ready to do whatever needed to be done. There was so much energy and really opportunity to, deal with this right, just directly. So alhamdulillah, what actually came out of that was a couple of things. The first was, we believe that with this, almost a crisis that was happening, nationally in Canada and really across the world, as Muslim youth, we had to be on the forefront to make a difference. So what came out of that meeting actually was something we called the MAC Give Food Share. And so we mobilized in 9 of our chapters, youth teams that put together food share, so meals or food packages or baskets to be given out to people who needed them at that time of crisis. And subhanAllah, the engagement of the youth across the country was just phenomenal. Even young people who were not previously involved with MAC youth specifically got involved, and the skill sets that came with that was just amazing. Like, we'd have youth working on graphic design and social media and marketing and, dealing with the different social media platforms, fundraising. We raised funds, the youth actually raised funds to, alhamdulillah, we had the 9 chapters, over 1,000 families being supported weekly, partnerships, in so many different, over 35 to 40 organizations. So there was just so much energy and creativity in making this program come to life, and organizing it, and just from the back end, a lot of the youth again working from home and bringing those skill sets and doing creative things to make this happen. And alhamdulillah, like it was really humbling to be part of that and see what the youth were doing, and see the impact that they had on the people in their community, be it Muslim or the greater community, and supporting them in that time of need. We have several of the chapters who are still going quite strong. So the food share is still up and going. Just yesterday in Calgary, there was a piece in CBC about how the Calgary youth are working to provide these food parcels or baskets. And so it's been really great to engage. And many people talk about how youth faced a lot of challenges in the online world, and or in the lockdown, but we found that engaging them through volunteering is one of the best ways to give them that, support that they might need. Also sense of belonging, sense of purpose, that, I have something that I can do and contribute. And it really helped them on an individual level, which is a very Islamic concept, right? Like we serve others as part of our core, mission as Muslims, and this was something that we fully were able to put together and bring to life through the pandemic. The other thing that we did is we quickly moved everything to online programming, as Sister Samia was saying as well. So, alhamdulillah, we launched the MAC Youth Show, which went really strong in Ramadan and beyond Ramadan. We also, many of our local chapters turned to online programming. We have something called, SYG, BYG, so the Sisters Youth Group, Brothers Youth Group. So those quickly turned online. Again, they had to be really creative, because usually what Brothers Youth Group is boys coming into the gym, playing basketball, and then having a halaqah, that traditional kind of youth group setting. So they really had to be creative in ways to how do you get the youth to come on. So like a lot of interactive games online, competitions, activities. And what really worked was really engaging the youth. So giving them opportunity to show their talents, spoken word, arts, all of those different things, and really allowing them to have a voice, so that they're not only part of the organizing of these events, but they're allowed to be part of it, so to speak at these things. So it's not just one-way communication, rather, more interactive. So that was really something that, worked really well, alhamdulillah.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you, both of you, for sharing this. And I'm happy to hear how quickly you were able to mobilize young people, not only on online platforms, but actually physically on the ground, especially with the youth food share programs and so on. In fact, we have seen a few news stories, mashallah, that was really it's heartwarming to actually see young people, mashallah, making such a difference in the real world. So that's definitely very phenomenal. So thank you for sharing that's very inspirational. Now, before we get into, and I'm glad you talked about some of the things that actually worked for both of you and your groups and your respective organizations. So before we get into what worked, I want to hear from you. What were some challenges? And I know you did allude to a couple. What were some of the things that you saw that were challenges back then, and you tried to tackle them? But what are some of the ongoing challenges is also I'm interested in hearing, because we do know that there are several challenges when it comes to engaging young people on virtual platforms. So maybe Sister Samia, you can get us started with what were some of the challenges you saw earlier, and you did mention some, but more specifically, what are some of the challenges you're still facing today?
Okay. Well, so, across the province, we had different stages of lockdowns and different ways that each province took care of it. And, some provinces had, allowed for people to gather. So we were having, for example, in Alberta, we had mentors who actually were able to have small events that consisted of 10 girls, whereas Ontario families, we had to go totally virtual. So there was a variety of challenges that was kind of like we were facing, and we had to kind of accommodate to each situation, or each, as you know, we have chapters all across Canada. So those were some of the things that we had to kind of like put different thinking cap on, and continuously going back to the drawing board. And okay, so now we're in February lockdown, where everything was locked down. Then it came, May, June, things started opening up. What can we do now? What can we start meeting in person, right? So there was constantly a challenge of, every other month deciding, can we meet up? Can we not? How do we do this, right? Some of the things other challenges that we also faced were families that were, didn't have access to multiple computers at home, right? So, and where they cannot attend our virtual program because, they have a sibling who's attending a class, for example. So we had to figure out a way to kind of say, okay, you know what? Virtual is one way, but can we start doing also phone? Can they tap into our conversations through phone lines, right? So we had to think of various ways to still be able to have that reach. Some of the other things that we talked about was, taking care of the families. So we also sent out like care packages, or we call it food cards, right? To families that, through conversations, we learned that they were struggling with, maybe not necessarily financially, but they were struggling as a family.
Hmm.
They had some losses in the family. So how do you, be there for people when we can't be there physically, right?
Hmm.
So those were some of the things that we had to take care of. And then there was, July, when everything became, all the virtual program, people didn't want to come in anymore
Hmm.
because it's summer. People want to go
Yes.
out, and there was a little bit of less restrictions at that time. So, what do we do to now? Alhamdulillah, we didn't have a drop in audience because by that time we were just kind of growing our audience. So
Hmm.
we didn't see a huge drop, but I think that a lot of people probably face that I don't want to come into this program
Hmm.
anymore because,
Hmm.
I'd rather go out and play with my friends or what have you. These are some of the things that we
Interesting.
constantly had to, recalibrate for.
Very nice. I mean, I think I think everybody can relate to this. Everything you just talked about. I mean, as a family and of course as organizers of in any capacity out there. So that's great to hear. How about you, Sister Sarah?
Yes, SubhanAllah, Sister Samia mentioned, the points. SubhanAllah, I was, thinking that's exactly what we went through. So, like a lot of very similar issues. I think one of the main ones was just maintaining engagement online. And I think, like you said, so many, different organizations had the same challenge. So, young people, actually old people and young people alike, we went through different phases on whether online programming was what was really attractive at the time. Again, in the summer, people wanted to be out. During the school year, when kids were just done with being online all day, it was really hard to engage them again virtually. So we really had to be creative in the way we approach things in different phases. So, maybe doing competitions instead, where people submit, photography or videos. Or we had a great art competition that happened last summer over Eid as well. So that was something that worked out really well. So people could do it on their own time and submit. We had something called, a Connect Hub, where a website where people could do submissions as well, whether it was writing or poetry. And so just really being creative in the different types of programming that we had, so that we can deal with the burnout that might be happening, and also just keeping people interested and engaged. Accessibility was another one, as Sister Samia said. So just being conscious of the fact that different, families may not have multiple devices at the same time. Also making our programming free and allowing all, people to be able to access it, and having things uploaded on YouTube or on our Facebook page, so people can see it later on if they can't necessarily be on at the time. So just taking things like that into considerations. Also with online programming, with the different the time zones, just keeping all of those different factors into consideration. And really, at the end of the day, nothing really can replace physical socialization, especially with this age group. So teenagers, young people, their friends, their circles, their support groups are really crucial to their
Hmm.
mental health and well-being and support. And the lack of that it can be a struggle at times. So that was something that we tried to keep into consideration. A lot of our local youth groups had different ideas. So we had, in the Mississauga youth group here, they had stress kits that they made and got dropped off or picked up to the different youth who had signed up around exam time. And, they had online programming around, anxiety and stress, and brought different professionals
Hmm.
in, tried to make it a safe space where people could submit their questions anonymously and just deal with the more difficult questions. So, just really kind of tapping into the youth needs and providing them as best as we can in the absence of that, physical socialization,
Hmm.
what their needs could be.
There have been several. I'm sure you're aware that there have been several reports. One being by by UNICEF itself, that indicate, that this particular mm, pandemic and the lockdown, of course, has impacted the marginalized communities the most, and in particular among them, the marginalized probably among the most. So, and I'm interesting. It's interesting. Both of you mentioned something about accessibility to technology in general. I wonder if your organizations kept this factor in mind when you are developing your programs or offering your programs, and especially the outreach, when you're doing outreach to those marginalized young people who may not have access to perhaps technology, or equal access to technology the way maybe others have, or for any other reasons that they're unable to access or may not be aware of even about such wonderful programs that you guys are offering. I'm wondering if there's any consideration that your respective organizations have for such target groups that may be financially, technologically, or otherwise challenged? If there's anything specific. If not, then of course we can.
If you want me to go first, I can.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, basically we had to start doing, for example, phone halakas, and still have like Zoom sessions. So then they still be, people can go into it with their phone. We also found a way to kind of like give them, like for example, like how Sister Sarah said that how do we empower these youth when you see them doing something, when they feel that they're actually helping, there's suddenly there's a greater motivation. So one of the things that we did was recently, well, actually twice so far, is we partnered with MISA Helpline, where there can be challenges that the youth are going to, not just youth, but anyone in the situation, and how they can, how we can actually let them, physically give with their hands, right? So we encourage them to, we did some fundraising, we did some things where they can kind of physically, do, and we allowed them like prizes just to kind of give them that initiative, right? That you guys can empower. You can empower yourself by giving back to the community in this way. We didn't, this is one way that we kind of kept in touch with the community at large that were in need, maybe going through some mental issues, maybe family that's been displaced, things like that.
Great. Is there anything you want to add, Sister Sarah, to this?
I think one of the important points was, just check-ins, so phone calls, messages, but that was something that was highly encouraged, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, that people would check in with, the youth and actually the families that we were used to engaging through our MAC programming. So to give them a call, send them a note just to check in to see how people are doing, and to ask about if they needed anything, whether it be your neighbor or the families that used to come to the masjid or those who used to come to our youth programming. So that was something that was done consciously, and I think it made a difference in people's lives, as well as the other initiatives that Sister Samia pointed out, empowering youth through them giving back to the community, having them have a voice, allowing them to have a voice in what exactly they needed, and allowing them to reach out to their peers, right? So the youth bring each other. So just allowing them to reach out to their peers in ways that is most effective, and making sure that, hopefully people are not forgotten or left or sidelined.
So you both talked a lot about what worked, which is great. I mean, some of the things, very phenomenal things that you guys have done. Let's talk about how you reach out to youth. I mean, it's one thing to provide some amazing, awesome programming, but as they say, if you ain't marketing, you might as well close the shop. And so how are you connecting with those youth? I mean, of course, I'm sure you already had a platform, you already had some engaged youth before the pandemic, but the pandemic hit and we know a lot of people also zoomed out, and a lot of people actually just wanted to leave, and if anything they would probably be on Instagram or Snapchat or other TikTok and other platforms, and that's pretty much it. So what I'm trying to understand is, what is it that you guys try to do differently or are trying to do differently to reach out to those young people who really don't want to be doing anything with religious programming or any Muslim organization in particular? So maybe Sister Sarah, you can start us off with that.
Yeah, so that's always a challenge. I mean, that's even a challenge in when we were in our physical spaces, right? It was always a goal that we had, that we want to, those who come, for example, to the youth group, the Friday night youth groups in the masjid or in, the school gym, how to increase our reach, how to really get to the Muslim youth who are outside of those, that circle and really need this kind of support. So again, just being creative about that, but in an online world, sometimes it gets even more difficult, as you said. So again, like I was saying, I think, using young people, so peer to peer, so using youth themselves to reach out through their platform. So whether it's, being more on Instagram, and Snapchat and these things that do attract other youth. Also, changing around the type of programming, so it's not like lecture based, but again, engaging them. So for example, when we had our talent segments of the youth show, we had different youth coming in and doing their showing their talents. And that would attract some of their friends to come and watch them and support them on that. So just again, the creativity in the programming, the creativity in the marketing, and having the youth themselves engage other youth around them. Also through our current venues, as you said, through our schools and our masajid and the different, partnerships that we went out to as well. That was really interesting to get different youth involved. I mean, I'm going to speak about this. Actually, Sister Samia and I worked on a project together just a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting how we brought both of our, respective communities, which are very similar communities, to one platform and engage them. So more things like that, really, to try to reach out to more youth that need this for sure.
Okay. How about you, Sister Samia?
Yeah, you know what? For sure, I can say one thing: marketing, marketing, marketing. We had marketing team around the clock. For my team, I have a marketing person that I had to basically just say, I need this person for me only, because we were constantly doing different flyers, different ways to kind of like pushing it out through WhatsApp, through Instagram, TikTok. I mean, there's so many places now that I just get so confused, to be honest with you. But I think for me, I had to kind of really look at, what is it that our audience wants to see? And as I said to you, we started out earlier this 2020 with one program, which was just the mentors program. Okay. Then we evolved into the Girl Talk drop-in program. Again, it was supposed to be in a coffee shop, but then we moved into virtual only. Then we realized that Girl Talk program, we were not getting the same type of engagement, as I said, if you were to meet in person. So, like many of the girls, they wouldn't turn on their camera, or they wouldn't speak up. Like it was supposed to be interactive, not like a super lecture based program, but more or less like a conversation, which wasn't happening. So then I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, what are we doing, and how can we still try to have this without, still having that intention of having a conversation? Because it's one thing to just kind of push down information on the youth, but are we listening to them? Are we listening to what they need to do and responding accordingly? And that was a big part of why I wanted to create this program. Is I want to be able to listen to what they're going through. So what happened was we decided then that, you know what, let's create an additional program, which is going to be a workshop base. And this is going to be not on the screen. We're not going to post it. It's not going to be recorded. So then there's a more of a relief, or, security from the girls that, you know what, my conversation is not being recorded or heard by someone else. And we even put many disclosure forms to kind of let them feel at ease and let their parents feel at ease that if they're going to discuss anything personal, private, it's not going to be, broadcasted to unknown people, right? And it's going to really stay within the group. We started having crafts. We started doing things like vision boards. We taught them how to do like things on Canva, which is again a tool that high schoolers use, but now these 10-year-olds are using it, which is great, right? We're now thinking of doing knitting sessions, right? So something with your hands, something with where you can kind of explore your art skills or with your hands. So those are some ways that we saw a lot of traction because girls love that. We even had a self-care course just a couple weeks ago where we talked about 10 self-care tools on how to. We had one mentee who actually created a website on taking off a weekly self-care tool, because self-care became obviously very, very important at this time, and teaching the youth on that was critical as well.
Oh, wow. That's great. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the point about young people, even if they are there, they're not actually engaged and they're not talking, or they're not, turning on the camera. And by the way, this is a complaint I'm sure you may have heard many teachers and many imams, even school teachers, are having, that these kids, we don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, and we know they're on Discord, or they are on Snapchat, or they're in whatever out there, and they're probably playing games actually in many cases. So I think this what you just talked about is very interesting, and many people don't think about it from that perspective, which is really creating that safe space where they can feel that, what, I'm in this virtual room with somebody, and probably sometimes a bunch of strangers. But if I know that it is a space where I'm not going to be judged, how I look, or what my background is like, or what I do, and what I say, then chances are they are going to be a lot more comfortable doing that. And I wonder if this was a similar experience you guys faced as well, Sister Sarah.
Yeah, actually, very similar. I mean, something that we did about a year and a half ago, actually before COVID hit, was we commissioned a youth research where we collected, data around what the youth challenges of Muslims in Canada are. And this was the first research of its kind. There wasn't very specific research done around Canadian Muslim youth and what their needs are. And one of the this is, a topic for another discussion, but one of the main findings there was this idea of a sense of belonging. And not feeling judged, and feeling safe in that space, and belonging to whatever organizational space or online space that you're a part of. And this was something that really we took seriously, that Muslim youth really wanted to feel safe in that space. They wanted to be welcomed, not judged, but also shown how to become better people, how to become better, Muslims, good Muslims, and supported in that journey, as all of us are on. And so a lot of our programming has really, we've been thinking deeply about that, and thinking how to allow Muslims, all youth who identify as Muslims, welcomed into our spaces, how we can help them to grow as individuals, to be the best they can be. And this online becomes a little bit more challenging, as was described, because again, you're in this virtual room, and so yes, we've seen that phenomena where youth want to keep their screens, their cameras off, which is fine if that's what makes them feel comfortable, and just over time helping them feel more comfortable. And so some ways of doing that, were suggested by just having, closed smaller groups, like a halakha kind of style, where there's consistency in their commitment, and in the way they, weekly they're in the same space, with their mentor being, someone consistent, and so on. So just different ways to make young people feel safe, having them submit their questions anonymously, give feedback anonymously, validate their feelings as well, and give them tools, tell them that it's okay, but also give them tools on how to handle whatever stresses that are in their way, and helping them grow in that way as well.
Excellent, very good. Well, thank you for sharing all of this. Before we conclude, I have just a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. One was, and I think this will be helpful, of course, for our audiences who are trying in various educational institutions, who are trying to engage young Muslims, especially for religious programming and otherwise as well. And then the question is specifically about, how do you find a balance between religious and entertainment programming, let's say, or religious, or maybe cultural programming, or religious and maybe other types of ways of engagement online. And the reason why this is even more important is, I'm sure if you have dealt with your own teenagers, or teenagers in your extended families, I'm sure the moment you mention the word halaqah, or the moment you mention Islamic school or Sunday school or something else, we know the kids run away faster than the light of speed. Speed of light. I'm sorry, what am I saying? Speed of light. And they don't want to be around it in many cases. Of course, there are exceptions out there because of, the preconceived notions. And sadly, because frankly speaking, most Sunday schools are not as exciting, and many halaqas are no longer, have not been exciting, at least in the past. So now, with everything going virtual, it's even probably harder. And I want to hear from you, your thoughts on, when you are marketing your programs, especially to young people, to youth, what is it that you're trying to do differently so that those images and maybe some, horrific memories of some of those halaqas or madrasas or Sunday schools don't come back to haunt them, and hopefully they get excited on their own instead of their parents pushing them to make sure you attend this specific online program. So maybe I'll start with Sister Samia here and to see what is it in terms of marketing and in terms of course, your program development that you're trying to do differently so that kids are not thinking that it's just another one of those boring halaqas or programs or sheikhs speaking, for instance.
I'm glad you asked this actually, because this is the thrust of my program. Is I told myself that I wouldn't, if when eventually, inshallah, when we do go in live in person, we will have it in a fun place, like I don't know, the D spot or something, right? Where everyone's having dessert and there's Islamic atmosphere, yet it's fun. It's it brings in a lot of the culture aspect of being Canadian into the mix, and that's kind of a vision that's there. But as far as just even naming the topic, okay, so we call their a program Girl Talk, right? It's pretty vague, right? It's not, there's no real like Islamic context to it. Not to say that we actually have, whenever we have like our speakers come in and they talk about any topic, there's always through Islamic lens. But we also want to recognize, for example, we'll have topics like identity crisis, right? Where, maybe there are girls that are in that verge of they don't know where they belong, right? So we're now kind of saying, hey, there's still a place for you. There's still a place where you can kind of come back to, right? Maybe masjid is not the direct place you can go back to right now, but there's a segue, there's a path to get there, inshallah, right? Having conversations about mind over matter, right? Or having conversations about my parents don't get me, right? That's one big session that we had, and we had one sister that came in and spoke about what are some of the challenges, right? In fact, on upcoming Sunday, we're going to have another session, and this is going to be about my kids don't get me, right? So our job as a community at this time is to bring the families together and bridge those gaps. And I can't speak to how much emphasis we put in trying to make it more fun. So we'll have like Kahoot games, we'll have like Jeopardy games. Again, Islamic topics, but we have to kind of have the young girls go on Instagram and TikTok to kind of like say, hey, let's play a game. There's a gift at the end, and there's things like that. So it's always motivating them, encouraging them in the language that they understand. And one of the biggest things that our program, what we have right now is we don't have, let's say, I call myself an auntie, like we don't have the aunties giving who's the host, right? We will always have somebody younger. So we'll have, if you watch my programs, it's always going to be a university student who's a host, and a co-host will always be like a 10 to 16-year-old. So when you have that as a optic, it really changes things. And, girls are more willing to listen to their peers or somebody just a little bit older than them than somebody who looks like me, who's an auntie, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I kind of positioned our program to kind of reach out to various types of audience.
Awesome. That's amazing. How about you, Sister Sarah at MAC?
So similarly, subhanAllah, like, when you started off the question, Brother Taha, you said, you have the entertainment and then the Islamic content, right? And I think it's important for us to acknowledge the negative stereotypes that young people may have around Islamic school or Sunday schools or halaqat and all of the stuff, but also to reframe their Islam so it's not compartmentalized. So they don't have, as Sister Samia was saying, So the fun, the sports, and then the art, and then the Islamic halakha, which is boring. And so basically to reframe that, so that Islam is their way of life, right? Like that they're Muslims in all their spaces, whether they're watching a movie with popcorn, or they're doing art with friends, or they're and so Islam is part of everything they do. So the programming, the way we're designing the program, is really to reframe that, so Islam is part of who they are and what they do. And so not necessarily tackling topics that are specifically, about a certain a topic, but rather around their experiences. So, for example, the MAC Youth Show was all around, bringing in young people who have excelled as Muslims, whether they're, we had a brother who was, in boxing, a sister who was, was doing, art as a business, and talking about how their Islam was part of that success and that talent that they had. So kind of reframing their, lens of Islam, so that it's part of who you are. It brings out the best of you. It's, it's good for you, both in this deen and this dunya, and in the hereafter. And that, you can be Muslim and excelling in all these spaces, and this is how. And the second point that Sister Samia spoke about is crucial as well. So most of our mentors are, young brothers and sisters who are graduates of, the high school programs we have. So they're, they've been there, done that. They're young, they have energy, they have, creativity. They can connect to the youth because they've, they're just in university. They've recently experienced similar things. Although, subhanAllah, we're in a very changing time now where things are changing so quickly. But just having that relatability by having younger people in the platform. So, just bringing all of that, and then engagement, right? It's not really about, we're not apologetic about our deen. We don't change anything about our deen to attract the youth, but we're engaging them. So competitions, games, all these kind of things are things that we try to do.
Very critical point. I'm glad you brought this up, because actually I think that is part of the real problem. I mean, this is nothing to do with the virtual world. Even is an ongoing issue that we have compartmentalized our faith and our deen so much, unfortunately, that religious education has a sadly very negative connotation and associated with it. So something, definitely a conversation to be had, inshallah, in the future, with a lot more time. As we conclude now, we have only a couple of minutes left. So I would like to request both of you to take a minute, each of you to take a minute to share your top three tips for other Islamic organizations, educators, imams, masajid who are struggling to engage young people online, through their platforms. So, just top three things. You can just summarize even some of the stuff that you just talked about. That would be great. So Sister Sarah, you go first, and Sister Samia, you go next.
All right. So if I was to say top three, I think through all our own learning and experiences would be listen to the youth, listen to what they want, hear them out, let them guide the programming, let them be part of planning, part of the implementation. That's number one. Number two, volunteering. So make sure there's a platform for them to be doing goodness, doing khair to the broader community, whether it's a simple project in their home or in their neighborhood or in their masjid or in their broader community. So giving that builds resilience in young people, and it builds so many very good qualities that our Muslim youth need. And it's a very good in terms of their own personal development, as well as having Muslims out there doing really important work in our community. And number three, I think it's crucial for us to be, very clear on our Islam, and unapologetic about our Islam. So it helps youth understand their religion through clarity, but also through being welcoming and listening to them and understanding their needs. So that clarity in our message is really, really important, in my opinion.
Amazing. Thank you. How about you, Sister Samia?
SubhanAllah, I think Sister Sarah got in my head, because I was going to give three tips, which is one is listen, two is listen, and three is listen to the youth. But I'll inshallah expand on that a little bit. Having a focus group within your community of just within your family, with your girls, with your daughters, with your nieces, finding out what's going on. What are some of the challenges, right? And through that, discovery, I think that, we as organizers of whether it's masjids or, just organizations like us who are trying to help the youth stay in Islam, we just have to listen, and we have to be able to empower them with ways like, for example, one of the next steps for me is to now create a circle of girls that has graduated from our program. Okay. And I know, there's an organization that's done a really fantastic job with this, and we are also thinking of, adopting some of their strategies. Is having a circle of, people, youth, where they are dealing with, real life problems. Okay, so we always talk about the adolescents and how they are, sometimes reckless. They are, they do things that we parents can't understand. Well, there is a certain thing in in the brain of the adolescent that's happening, and how can we take advantage of that? And how can we leverage that? Is what the key is, that our, what we have to do as communities is ask them real life question on, Black Lives Matter. How do we change the dynamics of, identity crisis and things like that? Like real life questions that they can come to together as the group to discuss these things and learn from each other, and then go and share that knowledge. This is the only way that we can, make them feel like this is their thing and not us telling them what it is that they need to do.
Awesome. Amazing. Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, sisters. You've done an amazing job sharing some very, very critical lessons that, many of us are still learning, whether at a family level or a community level, when it comes to engaging young people who are an asset to our community, who have so much to give and so much potential for our community, for Canada, for the Ummah. So thank you so much once again, Sister Sarah, Attia, and Sister Samia, for being here with us. Sister Samia Kazi, for being here with us this afternoon, and really enlightening us with and empowering us with some very very concrete tools that we can, and tips that we can actually take away and hopefully implement in our programming when it comes to engaging youth. So thank you, both of you, for being here. We look forward to having you again to talk about some very serious issues that are impacting us in a positive way. Great. Well, folks, that's about it for this week. There's so much we could have talked about, but we heard so many amazing things about how to create safe spaces, how to engage young people, how to listen to them, and how to have our programming directed by young people's voices as well as their involvement. We have heard a lot about volunteering. We heard a lot about youth-directed projects, and there's so much more that can be talked about. But inshallah, we hope whatever we learned today could be of benefit to our communities and our leadership as well when it comes to engaging young people. So once again, thanks to you, all of you who are watching, and keep giving us your feedback and ideas for future programming so we can inshallah address such critical topics in the near future. Special thanks to our wonderful team of producers, Sister Saliha Farouk, as well as Aisha Malik. And with that, I'm signing off on behalf of Canada Today on Muslim Network TV. You're watching Taha Ghayur. See you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.